Today I'm going to show you how my wife made her own angel food cake for her quarantined birthday, and we topped it with delicious boiled icing. Hi, I'm Amanda van der Gulik from cleverdoughcakes.com, and if you enjoy yummy baking recipes and fun cake decorating ideas, then make sure that you do hit subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you'll know the minute my next recipe comes out to share with you. So for this angel food cake recipe, we used a Duncan Hines angel food cake in a box. So my wife dumped the angel food cake box ingredients into a bowl and then added water. The amount of water that you need is written on the box. Then she mixed the cake ingredients for 30 seconds at low speed with a whisk, and then 1 minute at medium speed with the whisk. You can also use a mixer to do this instead of whisking it by hand. My wife likes to make her baking by hand. I like using the mixer because, well, with my lung condition, it's a little bit more difficult for me to do things by hand. So whichever works best for you. The angel food cake mixture will be light and fluffy, and it'll have lots of air bubbles ready to make the cake really rise when you bake it. Okay, so we did not have a bundt pan to make the angel food cake in. So this is a special trick that you can do if you don't have a bundt pan, but you do have a round cake pan. Simply take your cake pan. You can see that we used a springform cake pan here. And you take a glass and you put water in it, and you set that in the center of your pan, and that will create a bundt pan. Make sure that the glass is filled with water though, so that it won't crack in the oven. For the angel food cake, you actually don't need to wax or line or butter your pan. You just pour it straight in. You will have to sort of scrape it loose when it's finished, but you don't want the grease in the pan because it will affect the quality of the angel food cake. So just pour it straight in. As you can see, we had a sprinkled version of the angel food cake, and all the sprinkles sunk to the bottom of the batter. So my wife just scraped them out with her spatula and kind of evenly distributed them around the pan. My wife has made lots of birthday cakes for myself and my children, especially since I am now a little bit more incapable of baking myself, depending on the day and the state of my lungs. But this was the first time she's made her own birthday cake, and it was during quarantine, and I'm so grateful to her for doing that because I was very weak the week of her birthday, so it was really helpful that she helped bake it. And it makes it special when you are part of your own cake decorating and your own cake baking. Now our oven is a little bit hotter than it should be. Just the older ovens tend to lose their exact temperature abilities over time. And so what my wife did, she actually placed our can on top of another baking tray with a silicone mat in between. And the reason we did that was so that it would diffuse the heat a little bit and not burn the bottom of the cake. The actual temperature that we preset the oven to really depends on the instructions on the box. So make sure you do take a look at the box instructions when you're making your angel food cake. And you'll want to move this cake very gently to the oven if you don't have a bundt pan, because you don't want that glass to shift as you move it. Do make sure that you place your angel food cake in the center of your oven so that the heat will be equally distributed around the cake as it's baking. Our box recommended baking it for 38 minutes, so we set the timer and waited until it was ready. If you're using a bundt pan, when your cake is finished, you actually turn the bundt pan upside down, and you put like a glass bottle underneath it in the center of it to hold it, and that will help it to cool itself. But because we didn't have a bundt pan, instead, this is what we did. We took a baking rack, a cooling rack, and my wife put it on top of 4 glasses to really make sure we had air all around the pan to let it cool evenly. You'll know when the angel food cake is done when it has a little bit of a crust on top that's starting to separate, and you stick a toothpick in. I'll write in the description below how to do the toothpick test and have it come out clean. Then carefully remove your angel food cake from the oven so that you're not going to spill the water if you're using your homemade version of a bundt pan like we did. Set it on your cooling rack and let it cool completely. This can take an hour or two, but let it cool completely. It is also often recommended to actually let it cool completely in the oven. What you would do is turn the oven off and then open the oven a tiny bit. Usually oven doors tend to have like a little hinge where they'll stay open with a little gap, and let it cool in the oven as the oven cools. You can see here how in the center of the cake where the glass is, it's a lighter shade. So it just cooked a little bit differently. If you had a metal glass, then it would be dark just like the side of the cake where the metal is. But that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to explain that to you. As the cake cools, you'll see how it starts to separate from the side of the glass, which makes it really easy to pull the glass out once it's cool. Then just simply give it a little wiggle and pull the glass right out. And you can see into the cake there. See all those bubbles, those lovely light bubbles of an angel food cake. Once your cake is cooled, you can take it off of your cooling rack, or in our case, we just remove the glasses underneath the cooling rack to make it a little easier to get to before removing the cake from the cake pan. So as I mentioned before, because we did not actually line the inside of the cake pan with butter or with a parchment paper, because we didn't want any of the wax or the grease to touch the angel food cake. You can actually use parchment paper, that would be fine. But to get the shape of the cake pan, we didn't use anything. So we took a special icing spatula, an offset spatula, and loosened the cake from the pan before opening up the springform cake pan. As you can see, a little bit of the batter had seeped through the bottom of the springform cake pan, so it stuck to the silicone mat underneath. So we just needed to quickly, carefully rather, make that loose. And then my wife was able to remove the side of the springform pan off of the cake. And then she flipped it over onto our cake tray, which is going to be where we're going to store the cake, to remove the bottom of the springform pan. And as you can see, she needed to just use the offset spatula to loosen the bottom of the cake pan from the cake as well. Ta-da! And here is our baked angel food cake. Look at all those sprinkles. Isn't that exciting? And now it was time to ice our angel food cake with boiled icing, which you can see in this video here. Boiled icing is so light and fluffy. It's a perfect combination for such a light and fluffy angel food cake, and it just melts in your mouth. It's like eating a Swiss meringue without the butter in it. And then it was time to ice the angel food cake, and as you can see, I had some energy left, so I was able to ice the food cake for my wife's birthday, so that at least I was doing a part of her birthday cake for her. I plopped on 3 piles of the boiled icing on top, and then using my offset spatula, I smoothed it around the top and down into the center and then around the side. Boiled icing is so easy to use. It smooths so easily and beautifully, and it holds its form really well, and you keep it fresh in the fridge. Boiled icing or whipped meringue icing can be a little bit tricky to make, so that's why I created a special video for you to show you exactly how to make it, because when we made this boiled icing, we actually failed twice and then succeeded on the 3rd try, and it's really funny. So I highly recommend you check it out, and then you can know how to avoid those mistakes as well. Then after completely covered the angel food cake with the boiled icing, I was a little bit exhausted, so my wife went back to doing the decorating of her own quarantine birthday cake, and she took the offset spatula and did little divots on the top to kind of whip up the delicious boiled icing so that it had little peaks, make it look pretty. We had some green colored sugar sprinkles left over from another cake that we had done a while ago, and because it's sugar, it kept really well, so my wife sprinkled that on top just to add that yummy sugar crunch when we were eating the cake, and to make it look a little bit prettier, more festive. And then to make it even yummier and prettier, my wife actually had chopped up or ground up some chocolate chips and a little bit of coffee crystals and put it together in a shaker, and then shook on this mocha chocolate flavor on top of the cake. Oh my gosh, it was so delicious. Just take a look at that. Aren't you just dying to bite into it? Oh my gosh, it was delicious. Honestly, just doing this video for you is making me drool. I want to eat this cake again. It was so good, so tasty, so yummy. And look at that. Doesn't it just feel like it's a whipped cloud of angel food cake and boiled icing? Yum. Now, because of my lung issues, I can't have candles in our house because, well, I just can't breathe. And so instead of not having candles on my wife's birthday cake to celebrate her birthday and to blow out the candle and make a wish, we actually have little reusable candles that are lit up with a battery. And so we put a little cup in the center of the cake and put in the little tea light, the electric tea light in there, to sing her happy birthday. And then she made her wish and just turned off the light instead of blowing all over the cake. It's probably a good idea, especially right now during the pandemic. And then it was time to cut into the angel food cake and eat it. Look how spongy and light and fluffy it is. It turned out so beautifully. Look at all those sprinkles inside, and look how well that boiled icing held its form on top. It's like eating a bite of cloud, but really sweet, lovely, light, delicious, yummy, tasty cloud. It's so good. I highly recommend it. Although you might be tempted to eat the entire cake since it is so light and you feel like you haven't eaten anything at all, I don't recommend that. All that sugar. Oh my goodness. Now head on over here and I'll show you how to make the boiled icing or the whipped meringue icing, which is, again, it's like an Italian meringue icing, only without butter. So there's no butter, no oil, no fat of any kind in the icing, no shortening, and it's so easy to make if you avoid the mistakes that I'll show you in this video here. Go check it out. If you enjoyed this, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to hit the like button and let me know which part you enjoyed the most in the comments below. I'll see you in this video.